The painting that we're looking at, and I'm not going to tell you who it's by or what it's of, but what we're going to start by doing is doing just a straight looking exercise. And the reason we do this is that sometimes when we go to a museum or we look at a painting, and I think you get a great richness for what it is. I think to summarize, it's pretty straightforward what this is about. As you say, it is a painting of several riders in a wilderness setting in a stormy area that's probably in the eastern United States. So what kind of emotion or response do you think the artist was trying to evoke through this painting?
Survival.
Now, why do you say survival, and tell me why?
Ruggedness, trying to get from one point to another in a maybe not so friendly area.
The power of nature and glorification of wilderness is what I see with those, the people in us so small that nature just completely overwhelms them.
The lighting's a bit odd too, because the clouds are lit from the back, but the foreground, it's hard to see where the sun could be.
Just the lack maybe of human intervention, so
okay.
everything is kind of more untouched and just sort of, obviously there's probably noise from the stream or the storm, but not like disrupted noise,
And not
more of a peaceful.
constant.
Urgency, because this guy's trying to get the horse to go across. He obviously doesn't want to go across. The storm's coming, so these guys are trying to get to wherever they're going before they get pelted and the horse doesn't do it.
Fredericks was an artist who originally came from Belgium. He came to New York and settled about 1850. By 1855, he got an appointment as a school teacher in North Carolina, worked in one place for about 8 years or so, and then sadly the school burned down along with a lot of his production. He moved to another school and at that point was drafted into the engineering corps for the Confederate Army and did that for several years. And after the war's over, he simply couldn't make a living here, so had to move back up north to the New York area where he continued on for the rest of his life. But it's these works he did in North Carolina and eastern Tennessee is what he is best known for. Landscapes were an art form that were painted throughout the 19th century. And one of the reasons that was done was because American, both artists and patrons, were seeking to find an art form that was uniquely American. And one of the things that you could say as American was we might not have grand cities, might not have grand institutions, but we have land. And it is grand and magnificent land where you can come and settle. So it was kind of our power and our strength to have this grand land.
The word that I thought of when I first looked at this painting was infinite, that the land looks like it just goes on forever. And that was probably how it really felt. The land just looks like there's plenty of it, you know? So it's where we should go, and it's where we should occupy, and it's where Americans at this point in time should settle. And we were incented to actually go there in places, even though this is Tennessee, we were incented to go west, you know, and settle there and occupy land. And so when I saw that, it made me think of the word that land does not appear to be a finite resource. It appears to be an infinite thing. I've been in conservation work for about 11 years in the Chattanooga area. And when I sit down with landowners and talk to them about land conservation or about setting aside a piece of land or helping us set aside a piece of land for conservation, it's a very similar exercise. We talk about their piece of land and we talk about their experience on that piece of land. We talk about what they see. It's not just the trees and the floodplains and the birds and the bees. You think of your favorite place, and it may be a favorite place of your childhood, and it may be a vast landscape in the West. It could be your backyard, where you grew up playing. It may be your grandmother's backyard. But think of that place and think of your connections to it.
The Oregon coast.
Okay. Tell me more about what you see
Well,
and what you did.
of course, you see the Pacific Ocean, which is magnificent, but on the Oregon portion of the coast, like in portions of California, you see the mountains coming down to the ocean.
So would it be magnificent like this, or would it be an intimate, closer up view of something, or what for you?
I think the sheer expanse, the sort of magnificence of it.
Yeah.
The most incredible vacation I ever took was taking a 9-day float trip on the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. And so it shares with this picture the scale and the magnificence. And
The one that I could access growing up in DC isn't exactly the prettiest parts of DC, not the parts the tourists go to. We had them all, but you guys were all there, and it didn't feel like our place. So there's in Southwest, there's some fish markets, but if you go there and stand at the docks and squint, you can only see like greenery and blue. And so I used to do that because when we'd go to museums, which were easy to get to because they were free, I'd see these great Morans and all of these artists who were painting. And in fact, a lot of that led me into what I chose to do and to my greatest aspiration, which was at the time to make it to the Grand Canyon before I was 30. And I went when I was 29. I saved up money.
For me, it'd be Resaca, Georgia. My father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all died on the same piece of land.
Wow.
And I've been there my whole life.
Yeah.
And I love just the small hills and stuff there and the grass.
So would it be a big expansive painting, or a little bit more intimate?
It would be a smaller one.
Yeah.
Resaca's not very expansive.
But the field, the Resaca battlefield,
Yes. Yeah.
that field is it feels expansive when you're standing in the middle of it. So you have a connection to the Resaca battlefield, or just Resaca, Georgia? Or?
Certainly, the battlefield's part of it,
Yeah.
but Resaca
Yeah.
in general,
Yeah.
it's home.
Isn't that
Yeah.
one that you just helped preserve?
We did. We just put a conservation easement on the entire battlefield in Resaca, Georgia, just 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that?
You mean it wasn't preserved?
It wasn't preserved. It was not a national park. It was a private family, and they were about to lose the farm into foreclosure. And so we stepped in and actually preserved that piece of land, about 500 acres.
Okay.
An artist was actually credited with the National Park Service movement. And in the 1830s, 1840s, and then finally in 1890, when Yellowstone was set aside. But leading up to that were these vast paintings and thoughts about losing America's wilderness to westward expansion. So an artist was kind of credited towards the whole National Park Service movement. And Yellowstone was set aside in 1890, officially as a national park. Also, simultaneously, Chickamauga Chattanooga National Military Park was set aside in 1890 as the first national military park in the country. What are the images of Chattanooga that you would paint? You know, that you would say, I would capture this in a frame. I would capture this in a painting. One of those places that you
Sunset Rock.
Sunset Rock, okay. It's a good.
Who owns
Moccasin
Sunset
Bend.
Rock?
Yeah.
Moccasin Bend
Moccasin
is
Bend.
it's a beautiful
Well,
park.
I don't know, my question is because sometimes so many of the things that we think are protected are not.
Because I know it's closed and locked at sundown.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sunset
Sunset Rock, yeah. And you were saying Moccasin Bend. Moccasin Bend is a place.
Many views of the river, going down the river
Yeah.
gorge would work.
Yeah.
Cameron Hill. I'm sorry.
No,
Ridge, Stringer's Ridge.
Cameron. You know, painted that. Yeah.
Talk
Many
about
years
String-
back.
I like
about
the bluff
Stringer's
that this
Ridge.
building sits on,
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
It's iconic.
Yeah. One of our most recent projects is Stringer's Ridge, so you can turn right around and look out the windows here and see it. I mean, it's the ridge that runs from Red Bank, Hickson area, all the way down to Moccasin Bend. We didn't save all of it, but we saved about 105 acres right here in the North Chattanooga community. It was scheduled for a 500 condo development 3 years ago, and it was approved by Planning Commission for construction. We did step in, we bought the property, and right now, it's just, we raised the money for it, it's secured, and it's one of those amazing places that when we took people to Stringer's Ridge to walk the property, and it's very similar to your experiences that you just talked about. You get on the land, you walk the trail, you see the view, and you go, this is amazing. This is right here in downtown Chattanooga. It's 1 mile from 10,000 people. It's 2 miles from 25,000 people. This is a natural setting. It's an urban forest. There's already some trails on it. And so let's make it, let's secure it. So you look back over history of Chattanooga, and you think about all the connections with reflection writing being there, being a key ingredient of kind of our culture of Chattanooga, the national park as a part of the culture, and our connection to the river, and the river as it's part of the revitalization of Chattanooga. That's kind of where we kind of turned our back on it for a long time, and now we're facing it front and center to the river. I think that's the biggest change of Chattanooga is now our focus back on the natural setting of the river.
And that's one of the reasons Volkswagen came here.
Yeah.
They said that the outdoor, the availability, and the quality of life in Chattanooga was what tipped the scales in our favor versus the others. Their people wanted to live here.
The way we look at the environment is it's from playground to wilderness. It's from the Coolidge Parks to the national forests. And the legacy is amazing. When you think about the Vanderbilts in about 1920s, 1919, when they set aside 85,000 acres for the Pisgah National Forest. And you think about, John Muir and the Teddy Roosevelt in Yellowstone in the 1890s. So you think about there's a legacy of land conservation in our country, and the challenge, as you said, Nancy, the challenge now is who's doing that now, and kind of where do we go with the future. I challenge all of you to think about maybe your current favorite place or your next favorite place, and challenge you to find a new favorite place. I know that I've got a couple of them that I never dreamed that I would have, that now all of a sudden the Cumberland Gap National Park is now one of my favorite places. You think about Daniel Boone and westward expansion, and that's one of my favorite places now that 4 years ago I didn't even know existed, really.
Well, I want to thank her
Yes.
for taking time to talk to us tonight and lead such an interesting discussion. Obviously, TPL and other conservancies in town have greatly shaped Chattanooga, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I hope at some point you will, after this discussion, look on the Hunter website, because there will be a blog about this, and there will be some footage of this discussion. So I hope you'll not only visit us again for another discussion, but revisit this one on our website. So again, Rick, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Adira, what is the next one on TPL?
Yeah, there's some postcard, over there, if you want to pick up anything or call me anytime.
And Ellen, what's next week?